The hidden British power that controls the world. The grand conspiracy to settle Syria. Introduction. For centuries, Britain has exerted its influence over global affairs, even after the decline of its empire. While the United States appears to be the dominant power today, a hidden force within Britain continues to shape world policies, including those of Washington. What remains largely unknown is the secret plan devised by British and American elites to prepare Syria as a future settlement for the British people. This initiative is driven by the looming climate crisis, specifically the rising sea levels that are expected to submerge the British Isles within a decade. As part of this strategy, former U.S. President Donald Trump has been working on an ambitious plan to modernize Gaza, laying the groundwork for a larger transformation of the Middle East to accommodate British settlers. The shadowy power that rules the world behind the scenes, a network of influential entities, governs global affairs from Britain. This includes powerful banking dynasties, aristocratic families, and secretive organizations like the Chatham House, the Bilderberg Group, and the Round Table. These groups not only control Britain's domestic and foreign policies, but also wield significant influence over the U.S. government. Many researchers argue that American presidents are merely executors of a broader strategy conceived in London. This perspective explains numerous U.S. interventions in the Middle East, which appear to serve a deeper British agenda rather than purely American interests. The economic and demographic exhaustion of Syria. Preparing for British resettlement. One of the key components of the British-American plan to transform Syria into a future British homeland is to weaken it economically and demographically, rendering it unable to resist incoming waves of migration. This strategy unfolds through multiple phases, systematically reducing Syria's ability to sustain itself and paving the way for British control. 1. Destroying Syria's economy and keeping it in perpetual crisis. Severe economic sanctions. Britain and the U.S. impose crippling economic sanctions that prevent Syria from accessing essential resources like food, energy, and raw materials. This tactic ensures the collapse of local industries and forces the population to rely on foreign aid, making them susceptible to Western influence. Infrastructure destruction. Through direct military interventions and covert operations, Syria's industrial facilities, agricultural sectors, and transportation networks are dismantled, making reconstruction a daunting challenge. This scenario necessitates future investment by British-controlled enterprises. Resource control. The Western powers ensure that Syria remains unable to exploit its natural wealth, particularly its oil and gas reserves, thereby keeping the nation economically dependent and strategically weak. 2. Depopulating Syria to make room for future settlers. Forced migration. Millions of Syrians have been displaced due to prolonged conflicts, leaving vast swathes of land unoccupied and ready for future settlement. Creating an unstable environment for future generations. Young Syrians growing up in refugee camps or in exile are less likely to develop a strong attachment to their homeland, making it easier for foreign powers to reshape the country's demographic landscape. Sustaining internal conflicts. Continuous internal strife ensures that displaced populations do not return, keeping Syria in a state of demographic depletion. 3. Manipulating aid and reconstruction efforts. Blocking genuine reconstruction. Any efforts to rebuild Syria are either hindered or redirected, so that the nation remains reliant on Western companies, ensuring long-term economic control. Conditional development programs. Any permitted reconstruction will be designed to favor areas that will be future British settlements rather than serving the needs of the original Syrian population. 4th. Re-engineering Syrian culture and education. Implementing Western educational programs. In refugee camps and Western-controlled regions, new educational curricula are introduced to reshape the mindset of Syrian youth, integrating them into a globalized system detached from their national identity. Promoting a narrative of acceptance. Western media actively promotes the idea that incoming British settlers will be beneficial partners in development, conditioning locals to accept their presence in the future. Trump's parallel plan: the transformation of Gaza as a model for the British future in the Middle East. While Syria remains the primary target, there is a parallel project spearheaded by Donald Trump to transform Gaza into a modern metropolis, serving as a prototype for the wider British resettlement initiative. The logic is simple. If Gaza can be turned into a high-tech urban center, the rest of the region, including parts of Syria, can be similarly remodeled to accommodate a new British populace. The broader vision is to reshape the Middle East into a hub of smart cities controlled by British and Western interests, but designed with future British settlers in mind rather than the native populations. Why Britain needs a new homeland. The scientific consensus warns that Britain is at severe risk of being submerged due to climate change. Rising sea levels threaten the very existence of the British Isles. Faced with this reality, Britain's ruling elite has developed long-term strategies to ensure their survival. One such plan is to relocate millions of Britons to the Middle East, where the climate is more stable and land is abundant once cleared of its current inhabitants. This strategy aligns with historical patterns of colonial expansion, where Britain seeks to redefine geopolitical landscapes to secure its interests. The resettlement of the British people in the Middle East under the guise of economic development and humanitarian assistance is simply a modern version of old imperial practices. The global implications of this plan, if this conspiracy succeeds, it would mark a seismic shift in global power dynamics. The Middle East, once regarded as a battleground for oil and religious conflicts, would become a new British stronghold, allowing Britain to reclaim a form of imperial dominance through soft power and strategic migration. The United States, acting as Britain's enforcer, would facilitate the transition, ensuring a smooth takeover without direct military confrontation. Meanwhile, the populations of Syria and other targeted regions would find themselves displaced, marginalized, and powerless against the geopolitical engineering orchestrated by British and American elites. Conclusion: can this plan be stopped? While the world's attention is distracted by daily political dramas, this grand conspiracy is quietly unfolding. The British ruling class is well aware that their homeland may not be habitable in the near future, and they are already preparing a new one. Syria, Gaza, and possibly other Middle Eastern regions are being systematically reshaped to accommodate an incoming wave of British migrants under the guise of economic revival and reconstruction. The question remains: can the people of the region wake up to this reality before it is too late? Or will they one day wake up to find themselves strangers in their own land?